Kia ora koutou, my name is Ruth. I'm one of the co-managers for 48 Hours as well as a past participant. I'm hosting this short series of podcasts about tackling the shoot weekend. This last episode is all about Sunday, when the rubber hits the road and you have to get the edit and all the other post finished and hand your film in on time. I've got two people here who have experienced this process more than a few times, and they're going to give us some tips and tricks about how to survive Sunday. Do you guys want to start by just introducing yourselves and giving us a bit of your 48-hour history?
Hey, I'm Bryn. I've done both the recording side and the post-production side of 48 Hours a few times, and it has been both crazy and intense at the same time. So thanks for having me.
My name's Bailey. I did the first 48 Hours in 2004, so I've probably done maybe 17 or 18, I think. And I've worked both in the art department, but mostly post-production for the last 15 years.
Cool. Okay. Well, I thought we might, I know this podcast is about Sunday, but you brought up, Bailey, that really you probably want to start thinking about post-production on Friday night, perhaps with a bit of workflow. Do you want to give us a bit of an idea about how you like to set up your workflow for 48 Hours?
Yeah, so we usually have a big team meeting on Friday night when we get our genre, and everyone throws out all their ideas and we start on the whiteboard and getting it all going. And I'll usually take a bit of that time to talk to whoever's shooting and capturing sound, and just make sure that we've got all our frame rates set, just figure out what resolution we're shooting in, and how we're going to, whether or not the sound's going to camera, or if we're going to post sync and we need to clap, or anything like that. So I would start that on Friday night, and generally we might even just shoot a bit of the meeting, and I'll take that back with me on Saturday night and just test that out on Saturday morning before all the real footage starts rolling in.
Yeah, have you sort of done that as well, Bryn? Or?
Yeah, well, it's always a bit of a big talk, especially on the recording side. You always kind of think around, what equipment have I got? What can I make happen a little bit? Like often time code isn't really an option for the much smaller teams. But sometimes if you can just get a receiver on the camera, that's a huge step in the right direction. I think if you can avoid having to sync a clap, then that's probably the best way to do it.
Cool. So you guys are talking about making sure that the sound comes into the camera, so when you get it onto your timeline, it's already sunk up.
That's ideal. But there's some good tools these days. I actually do a lot of my post sync using a multicam sync, just using audio to do that. So which is potentially lazy, but also just saves a lot of time, really.
Which is kind of what we're looking for in 48
hours. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So doing an auto sync with audio can save you, definitely, because you're always going to be getting something into the camera anyway that you can that you can sync up with.
Yeah.
And so, do you guys wait till Sunday to edit, or are you in on it on Saturday? What are you guys up to on Saturday?
There are absolutely things you can do before when you've given the files to go crazy on, but I think most of it is waiting for Sunday, especially for sound. You kind of have to wait for the picture. I've tried to start that on my first 48 Hours. I tried to start editing on some of the files they'd given me, but you end up having to restart when the editor's like, I finished the final cut. Restart. All right.
So you're doing the sound post, eh?
Yes.
Cool. And so you're getting Atmos and sound effects and bits and pieces together, or are you still just kind of...
So for the few times I've done both the recording and the editing. So I think it can be really really helpful, because you can kind of know what you need for the post, and then it takes a few times to figure out what you need for post, doing it both a few times. But eventually you get the hang of I need to get Atmos for every single different environment I'm in. I think the biggest thing I found is that a boom mic, having recording on every single shot, regardless if someone's talking or not, can just be super helpful, just avoid having that little bit of silence in a shot, because just cutting to silence is the most awkward thing, is what I've found.
So you're just talking about getting some Atmos sound that you can just put down over the top and
yeah. And if you've recorded a boom on every single shot, you know that whatever's being thrown in is always going to have at least something on it, even if it's unusable. At least it's something, so you have a staple, and you can build on top of that. Yeah.
And so you're mostly editing, Bailey. So you said you're pretty fast. It sounds like. What did you say? You're locking by 2 a.m. on Sunday?
Usually. we've been working together for a long time though, so we've got our processes down pretty. We have everything shot listed and we have a shooting shot list, and that does help. Like you've sort of got a bit of a paper edit almost to start with. So we also, one thing we do too is continuity notes. So the director can say which take they prefer, and like when I'm doing the assembly, which I will usually start on Saturday about midday, they might start running stuff back. So
as soon as they shoot a scene, they'll send it back to you?
Yeah, we usually do, or a location change. Yeah, they'll have someone run the footage back, and then I will start assembling those scenes.
And so when you say continuity, sorry, I'm just kind of translating it for super beginner teams, but just thinking like what you're talking about is just having the director like write a few notes about which is, so you're not having to watch each take and figure out which is the best, which one they like, and you can start throwing.
So there'll be some real arbitrary notes, like they'll just be talking about, so we have like a shooting script where they'll write what shots have covered which part of the script. And then also next to that, sometimes they might write like, take 3 of, the mid shot is the one that we liked. And I mean, generally speaking, the last take's always the best take because you move on, right? But and also it's useful to note down any audio things, like, plane goes through here or through this take, or whatever else, or something wasn't choreographed properly or whatever. So yeah, I find that can be very, very helpful. And saves a lot of time in editing. Yeah.
And so I guess it's not just about the practical bit of editing, it's also about making the story make sense too. Like, because you're, I guess, at the point where you're watching it and you're seeing whether or not it does make sense.
Yeah.
Like, do you go back to the team and say, hang on a second, we need some extra, or you might want to pick up, or I'm putting this together and it doesn't really end properly. Do have that conversation?
Definitely, we've done that before. Yeah, and that's can be really why that's also a good. Why it's good to start cutting basically as soon as you get the first few scenes wrapped, because you can pick all that stuff up and then you've got Sunday morning and you're not stressing. You can build that into your schedule. Yeah. So
it sounds like Sunday really for you is you've got that cut locked and you guys are doing all of the sound, picture, music.
Yeah.
And
visual effects sometimes. Like Sunday is a good time for if you have to do anything in After Effects or Resolve or whatever. It's also a really good chance to do that. Yeah, or to hand off to if you've got visual effects people, which would be lovely. Yeah.
Yeah. So because I know there's sort of 2 ways of doing it. I know a lot of the more beginner teams might just do everything on the same timeline. Someone will finish editing and then they'll do the sound and the picture and they might get some music or whatever. And I know some of the more advanced teams do like full networked edit systems, I mean, I feel like, do you guys have any advice for people about how complicated they should make it?
In terms of the sound post, I think I've done it a few times where I've been like, I need to do a bit of a Foley session to get some extra things that I need in, but I think I reckon it's best to avoid a Foley session if you can, because it just gives you that more time in the edit, and theoretically you should be able to get all your Foley from the recordings on set. If the boom mic is on most of the time, you should get most of those sounds. And I would only ever do a Foley session if there was something that was like really story dependent that just wasn't recorded. If it was necessary, I'd do it, but I think I try to avoid it if I can.
And so you're working, like when you're working with your team, Bryn, what sort of time do you get the edit locked before you will start making it all beautiful? Like, how much time do you have?
Well, there was one year it was particularly bad where the editor was talking to me. They're going, hey, I really know I need to get it to you, but it's just taking me a bit longer. How much time do you think that you need to finish before we hand it in? And this was getting to about 3 or 4 hours before we had to hand it in. I was going, I would like to get it now, but it's okay. But I was like, you got to do the picture edit. That's quite important. You just do it as fast as you can. That's okay. I think I ended up having about 2 hours to smash out a sound edit, and I was just going crazy, just like, and managed to somehow get the half done sound edit in. But honestly, I think it's just a communication with the editor being there as much time as you possibly can. I think 3 or 4 hours is would be best for me, I think. At least, yeah.
What about you, Bailey?
I definitely, I do send videos to, I mean, we don't start post sound till Sunday, but I send videos of rough cut scenes or close to finished scenes to music on Saturday, so that they can start composing and getting their timings right. I wouldn't send a sound post until after we locked, but if we were running close, I might do something where I would send them like a close to lock and then use EDLs to do a final session. But we definitely do try and lock with enough time for sound, because it's so important. Like it does make or break the film, I feel like. Yeah,
I feel like we've watched a lot of 48-hour films, and we've watched a lot of bad sound, and it can really impact the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'd honestly say to people, like, fix the sound over like trying to get your VFX or your grade. Like,
absolutely.
we've seen films that haven't been graded and stuff, but you can hear it, so you know what the sound's like. And it makes
and
sense.
I just want to back up what you said about Atmos. Like, honestly, as an editor, Atmos tracks will save the film. Yeah, because the last thing you want is the audio dip. Then you're really you're noticing that you're watching a film, and it just really takes you out of it. Yeah.
And you'll be surprised, all the little taps and things you'll get from just having a boom mic in the background is just so good. It'll just make it sound so much better.
But one of the things that we were just talking about was music and sound effects, and obviously music, you can't just put any old music on your phone. This is one of the biggest questions that we answer the phone about during 48 hours is, can I use this piece of music by this famous person? And the answer is no, you can't. There's a whole page on the website about what music you can use. And we really want teams to look at using composers where possible, because there's heaps of composers out there who are also learning, and people with bands, and do you guys, what do you guys do for music?
I've been lucky enough because a few of the times I've done it with uni friends when I was studying. So we would get, because I was at Massey, we would just get some of the music students to help us out, and that was super handy because they were so keen. They were like, "Oh yeah, spread my music, getting it out there. Oh yeah, well, I'll do a bit of that," and they would just come up with something cool for us to chuck in. On other occasions, I think during the COVID competition, I just decided to pick up a guitar myself and grab my old sound recording kit and just see if I could make something work, and it kind of did. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, we use composers. We've got friends, a lot of musician friends, like Wellington, so much good live music. We're very lucky. So we tend to use friends who are musicians. They'll score for us, and sometimes use music that they've written that they own or whatever. So I have to say, I do think getting it composed can really help with the story. To push tone and put a bit of personality into it. So we generally prefer to use composition if possible.
Awesome. Yeah, no, we're definitely trying to get more teams to think about that, because there's lots of, as you say, people that are music students or wanting to get their music out there, and it makes sense to kind of collaborate together.
Just even ask a local band. Like, so many are just on their own labels or their friends' labels or whatever, and you could get permission, I reckon, easy as.
So just thinking about so when I did 48 Hours, which is a long time ago now, I was always the person that did the colour grade and the online. So it's like right in that last sort of 2 hours, and I've sort of got all these slightly traumatic memories of sitting there trying to like put all the VFX in the timeline and turning around, and the whole team's like all standing behind you, all just staring at you like.
That's not allowed in my honestly.
I was going to say, how do you deal with that stress right at the very end? Because I guess it's a bit easy when you're all excited on Friday night, but Sunday it gets a bit real, right?
Yeah. Sure.
It's just something you have to do, and like quite often, I'm not a colourist by trade, but I will do it if I have to, and usually I have to do it. And it's quite hard because, even if you get 4 or 5 hours sleep, it's your eyes, the whole weekend there's so much adrenaline and everything. So it can be quite hard to figure out if purple is purple, or if, why is there so much red in the shadows or whatever. But I think it's just something I have to do. And our director's actually a photographer, so luckily he does a lot of colour grading, obviously, of his own photography. So I rely a lot on his eye. and have validation is great. Get someone to validate you, but maybe not 10 people in the next week.
Go away. You're stressing
Yeah.
out. I think the other thing I found really helpful was right at the end is having like a checklist, you know, making sure that we've got the title, or
absolutely,
and you know if you've got VFX shots, having a list of them, and then making a note of whether you've put, you know, just crossing them off.
Yeah, that's really good,
because otherwise you can just miss it and then send it off and then go, oh, we didn't put the title on, or we forgot 3 of the really key VFX shots. So that can be quite
I mean, if you're editing, one real helpful thing that I will say is if you're editing in Premiere and you put markers on your timeline, which is what I do in my day job. Every time there's like an effect or something, I'll put a marker, and you export that XML to put into Resolve. All those markers will come across into your Resolve sequence, so that can be another good way to make sure that you've got everything, you know, going through there. If you don't want to write a physical list down and you want a visual representation or a bit of a backup, because, you know, sometimes you're so tired you can, like you say, so easy to just miss one shot. Yeah, very easy.
Cool. And what sort of software do you guys use? Like, we're sort of seeing a real shift now. We're getting lots of younger teams tuning up using Resolve, which is great because they can just colour grade it and it's really handy.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been someone who prefers for the editor to take it down and give it to me in Pro Tools, because I'm like, I love Pro Tools. I love Pro Tools, so that's okay. But I've also used DaVinci a couple of times as well, when it suits and when it's just a bit easier that way, because if you only got the one computer, then you might as well just do it. Saves a bit of time, so absolutely. Yeah.
I like timecode, so I don't use Resolve to edit, because you can't look at source timecode on multiple tracks, which I find really annoying. So I'm a Premiere editor at the moment. So I guess that's what I'm using. Yeah, and then of course like just making AAFs to send to Pro Tools, which all link back nicely, and good workflow there, like solid workflow.
Yeah, let's talk about workflow. It's not very interesting, but I feel like the phone calls I get at the very end of Sunday are often people who've forgotten about workflow or didn't test it.
Yeah.
I feel like the number of people who try a new thing on the weekend rather than because they think it might be faster or flasher or better, rather than the thing they actually know.
Yeah.
Do you guys do a bit of workflow planning? I'm guessing you probably already have a bit of a sense of it from your professional lives.
Yeah, well, because in Pro Tools you can kind of set up your own templates and such, so I try to kind of get my template as optimal as possible for me, because, I mean, everybody was different, everyone will have their own shortcuts and whatever, so I kind of have everything set up beforehand on my template to just kind of jump straight into it, just input and go kind of thing. So there's lots of preparing you can do that way,
Yeah, definitely prep all your stings and stuff. If you've got like a bit of a team logo or whatever, make sure that's all going and in the right frame rate and, you know, at the right resolution. But yeah, I would just double check on the website, go and look at all the specs, and then just open up your sequence settings and whatever you're in, and just make sure that you're editing to the right thing, because that, I'm sure that's what we were talking about before, you know, if you're outputting in the wrong frame rate, you're going to see it like on the big screen and it's going to make you really upset.
So this is all really great stuff actually. I think maybe what we could do is sort of just wrap up perhaps with some last pieces of sort of, you know, things that have worked, maybe some stories that haven't, you know, last pieces of advice.
Give yourself heaps of time to output the file, because if you're putting heaps of effects and stuff on, even using stabilizers can affect the output time. And you know, I don't know what kind of computers people have, but if you're just cutting on your gaming laptop or whatever, you know, you just don't know what could really affect it at the end. And if you don't give yourself enough time to output the file and then watch it back at least twice, like, you could really end up in some trouble.
That's really good advice. And
Sometimes you just have to, like, I mean, you know, you never finish art, you just abandon it. So you just have to you have to let go at some point. That's all I can really say. Yeah.
I think on top of that as well, just being prepared for things to go wrong as well. I've definitely had a few times when like the Pro Tools session has just decided it can't link to any of the files or whatever, and go, ugh! Just been like half an hour trying to fix that problem. So that also happens as well. So I think it's safe to always ask for more time than you need, I think is the learning there. Absolutely.
Yeah, we always had the hand in time and then gave ourselves a buffer,
and
then worked time backwards, and then that gave us some goals for for the weekend.
Yeah.
You know, like if we, you know, and then you knew, like you're like, if your edit's going to take longer, you're going to have less sound post or
Yeah.
a crapper colour grade or less VFX.
Yeah,
You just
absolutely.
have to decide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Any last things for the teams?
Not really. I
Not
think it's
sure.
just a really fun weekend. Like, you get to make a film with your friends. Like, what's better?
Yeah.
Yeah, just let go, I reckon. And
Have fun, go crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.